Fittipaldi won here 2 years ago. Rahal won the inaugural race in 1986. Then Fittipaldi in 1987. Al Unser Jr. in 1988. This man, Danny Sullivan, a bridesmaid 3 times. And Paul Page, is he healthy today?
Well, as we suggested, the X-rays say that he is. He still has the brace on his arm. You have to remember, when you've suffered a broken arm like that and can't exercise the muscles around the brake, they tend to atrophy. So he is still not up to full strength. He tried to exercise for a while, and they told him to stop it. He was causing more damage than he was helping. But just a week ago, they allowed him to start exercising again.
And right now, let's run down the grid for the 1989 Molson Indy as the cars will take a couple of warm-up laps here on the Toronto waterfront. Emerson Fittipaldi, a course record 59.4 seconds, has won 4 races this year. Al Unser Jr., the winner at Long Beach, California this year after bumping Mario Andretti, the defending Molson Indy champion. Danny Sullivan, 3 times a bridesmaid. Remember, the injured arm is now healthy. He is ready to race. Bobby Rahal, a winner last week in that Lola Cosworth, the first non-Chevy winner of the year. Michael Andretti has led every race in 1989 except Portland, but has yet to win. Teo Fabi from Milan, Italy, will drive the March Porsche, the team that Penske really fears. Mario Andretti, the great veteran, the only man to win both the Formula One and CART Champions, is on row 4 along with Rick Mears, the second Penske car, a winner this year twice, both ovals, Phoenix and Wisconsin. Arie Luyendyk, the Dutch driver, has never won a kart race, was 3rd this year out at Portland. And also on the 5th row, the 10th fastest, is Derek Daly, a former Formula One driver from Dublin, Ireland, who has yet to win a kart race. There's a look at the first 5 rows. Let's run down the rest of the field. Scott Pruitt was second in Detroit. Boycell 3rd at the Indianapolis 500. Very impressed with Scott Goodyear, the Canadian, qualifying 14th. John Jones has qualified 15th today. So those 2 Canadians doing very, very well. Scott Creighton drives for Dick Simon. Kevin Cogan involved in that spectacular crash of the Indianapolis 500. There is the hard luck Ludwig Heimrath Jr. Bernard Jourdain, the Rookie of the Year in the Indy 500. And a good friend of yours, Paul Page, the great veteran A.J. Foyt, as we're on board with Al Unser Jr.
But here's the problem with Daly. We actually have 2 of them. Derek Daly's car was pulled off the grid before they commanded the engines to start. And look, John Jones strapped into the cockpit but ready to go. And he had some problems at the back of the fuel truck. Unclear as to what the situation with either of these cars is, but whatever they saw at the back of Daly's car, they've taken the machine completely apart.
And now the cars coming back by the start-finish area for the 2nd time today. They'll go around at least once and possibly twice more. 28 cars qualifying. Fittipaldi and Unser on the 1st row, followed by Danny Sullivan and Bobby Rahal. We take a look at the starter stand. Will we get a green flag? Yes, we're off and racing with the 1989 Molson Indy. Danny Sullivan following Emerson Fittipaldi into that first turn. Andretti also gets by Al Unser Jr. So it is Emerson Fittipaldi as the cars go down onto Lakeshore Boulevard. Fittipaldi has the lead. And Danny Sullivan told us he would be impressive here today, Paul. A great start by Sullivan.
Super start by Sullivan as he comes up from that 2nd row, but just as good for young Michael Andretti, who locked the brakes as he came screaming into that corner. Poured smoke off of both of them, got it slowed down, and made the turn, picking up 3rd place as he did it. Now he's coming up to challenge Sullivan.
As Andretti challenges Sullivan, there's our leader, Emerson Fittipaldi. Sullivan, Andretti, Unser, and now running 4th is Bobby Rahal, running 5th. The Porsche, the March Porsche of Teo Fabi. As they come up under the Gardner Expressway, Fittipaldi will now come down into turn 11. They take it at about 155 miles an hour. It is a turn, the right turn. The next one is the one he likes right here. He calls this the best turn in all of international road racing through turn 11. And down past the start-finish area, it is Fittipaldi, Danny Sullivan, Michael Andretti, Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, the Porsche of Teo Fabi, and then Mario Andretti.
Mario Andretti and Rick Mears has dropped into 8th position, so the top of the field, all very familiar names, and the big surprise being that the second row was able to jump up and pick up second and third as Michael Andretti continues his challenge at the back of Sullivan's car, and Sullivan has managed to stay right with Fittipaldi. So if there was a question about his ability to drive, Sullivan has already answered that question. Now the question will be, can he sustain the drive?
Paul, he says that right arm is fully recovered. You disagreed with his decision to race on that road course in Detroit so close to the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, I was very surprised that he did it. He and I had conversations about it, and I suggested to him that it might be wisest just to sit out whatever the doctors felt was the appropriate interval. He was actually deceived a little. He raced a week after Indianapolis at the Milwaukee Oval. Well, that oval doesn't require a lot of turnings. You're really only moving the wheel 4 or 5 inches each lap, and it's very, very smooth. When it got to Detroit, suddenly the wheel was transmitting all the bumps of the street circuit, and that actually jogged one of the screws that was holding the bones in place loose.
That is Al Unser Jr., the onboard camera, as he pursues Michael Andretti, who is running third. There's Al Jr. Al is running fourth. Fittipaldi the leader, followed by Danny Sullivan, Michael Andretti, Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, Teo Fabi, Scott Brayton, and Mario Andretti. Car number 6, Michael Andretti, followed by Al Unser Jr. I'm a little surprised, though, that Sullivan still has the brace on the right arm. He still drives with it on, says it will be on for some time yet.
That's probably a good idea to support those muscles that aren't really as strong as they should be. It helps give him a little extra support, especially when he's driving. It's completely modified for racing as Sullivan makes a try.
Very, very close into turn number 1 onto the lakeshore. A great passing area, we told you earlier. Danny Sullivan tried to make the move on Emerson Fittipaldi, both in those Penske Chevrolets. Sullivan, some question about his overall physical condition, though, as he's been out with that arm injury, but so far he looks to be absolutely in magnificent shape.
You see, with that maneuver between Sullivan and Fittipaldi, it gave the opportunity for Michael Andretti in the 6th car and Al Unser Jr. in the number 2 car to pull up and close on them once again. So the first 4 places are all within contact.
Danny Sullivan is all over Emerson Fittipaldi. That is car 21 of Guerrero.
That's the Alfa Romeo. That's a brand new engine to the circuit. It's a March chassis. It's a car that is going to go through about a year and a half of teething, if history is any indication, before it actually runs well.
Yes, sir. This time into turn number 1, Danny Sullivan has Emerson Fittipaldi. Danny Sullivan getting a tremendous ovation from this large crowd of more than 60,000, 3 times a bridesmaid. There is Guerrero's Alfa Romeo down on the Lakeshore Boulevard. It's now Sullivan, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, Teo Fabi, Mario Andretti, Rick Mears, Ari Lyondike, Scott Pruitt, and Raul Boisel.
Well, that's just as pretty a pass as you're going to see, though I think for the most part, Emerson realized he was there, realized he was faster, and decided for the time being at least, let's let Danny Sullivan run this race.
I'm wondering, because Fittipaldi is in such great shape as we look at that pass to the inside again, if he's just content to let him sit back, because Sullivan was worried, not about the arm, but about his general physical condition, because he hasn't worked out that hard.
I'm sure that's on Fittipaldi's mind, you know. He has the great position psychologically of being the grand winner of this season. I'm sure that he saw Sullivan on the chart. He decided it just wasn't worth it to sit there and battle the man. He, after all, has a problem with the right arm. There's no money to be paid for being in front at this point, so why not let him go ahead and run the race for a bit?
Right now, it is Danny Sullivan, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, and Al Unser Jr. We should point out that John Jones from Thunder Bay, Ontario, who started at the back of the field into the pits, Randy Lewis. Jones, who started at the back of the field, Paul Page. I'm very impressed. He has moved that car up into the number 15 position. And how about Scott Goodyear? He is running 13th.
Well, both of them with magnificent rides, especially considering their starting position. Scott Goodyear making a wonderful transition back to the Indy cars. course, the last time we saw him in an IndyCar, he really did a nice job. Randy Lewis was in the pits answering a black flag. One of the marshals noticed something at the back of his car. He came in for consultation. The CART officials called him in, and then apparently whatever it was, the pit crew has seen it as well. Now they're working. They have the hood off the back of the car.
That is the Porsche of Teo Fabi, car number 8, pursued by the Newman Haas entry of veteran Mario Andretti. We said at the top of the show as Andretti tries to make a move on the Porsche. Andretti has smacked Guerrero's car on the lakeshore. That is Mario Andretti. He certainly appears to be all right. Mario Andretti was trying to make a move on the Porsche of Teo Fabi. I don't know, a vision problem there because he had lots of room to see Guerrero, Paul.
Well, of course, they've just come off of that corner before. You assume that he knew that the car was there because he had been past it once. On the other hand, he may have assumed that the car had been pulled off the course. I didn't notice a yellow flag on that inside barrier anywhere after they came off the corner. So Andretti may have exited that corner with the assumption that the car had been cleared from the course. Matter of fact, it would seem logical that they should have removed that car.
He is a very, very lucky man that he was not about 6 inches to his right. As it was, he only clipped the right side of the car, not the actual cockpit. If he'd been about 4 or 5 inches to the right, he probably would have hit dead on.
But you notice, he has not climbed out of the car. These are the rescue people from the Horton safety team. They're talking with him. The red indicates on their sleeves that they are rescue people. Now they're getting him out of the car. And now we are going to get a full course yellow. Would have seemed proper to have gone full course yellow, slow the field down, and get the Guerrero car out of there. I suspect we're going to have a very angry Mario Andretti, and he seems stunned by the whole thing. Normally, he would just hop out of a car. They're still working down, and now they've got him totally free. And let's see what his movements look like. Well, not as quick as I'd like to see. I think he's still a little stunned, if not shocked, by the situation there.
He is the 1989 Molson Indy Man of the Year, honored at the banquet on Thursday night. Won the Formula One championship in 1978. The only man to win both in F1 and, of course, in kart racing. That is the Guerrero car, car 21, the Alfa Romeo, driven by the South American. You know, Paul, he didn't even move at the last minute. He must have been absolutely, totally surprised because as he went to the right of Teo Fabi in the Porsche, I expected he would dart back quickly to the left. He did not do that.
Well, I don't think that he thought the car was there. I would really be interested in knowing whether or not the marshals on the station just ahead of the corner had the yellow flag out. As we look at it again here, look to the left. I don't see any yellow flags anywhere. Now, they've got a long run here. Let's look up and down the course. Well, there is a flag just before the car itself. What you'd like to know is whether or not one was on display around the corner before, warning Andretti that that car was stationary there. He certainly didn't seem aware of it, or he never would have darted to the right, because the pass would have taken a great deal longer to accomplish.
Well, the good news is Mario Andretti seems to be okay. He is 51 years of age and one of the most popular racing car drivers of all time. Mario Andretti seems to be saying, I don't know what happened. I absolutely had no idea that car was there.
Well, I think he is very surprised that it was. Even more surprising to me is the fact that it was there. You know, there are a couple of theories on that. There's one that may have been a safe area and it was all right to leave it there for a while. On the other hand, when you have an incident like this, and this is certainly not the first time, by leaving it there, you've left a $500 million race car on the side of the race course. Now, where that car was uninjured, it simply had an engine problem, was driven to a stop. The Alfa Romeo has heavy damage, if not terminal damage to it. It may not be able to be repaired. Andretti's car looked as if the damage was extremely severe. He may have been lucky enough to only cut off the suspension members on the right side and leave the tub or the chassis untouched.
And obviously very disappointed, Mario Andretti. What happened there? Did you see Roberto Guerrero's car?
I saw Roberto Guerrero's car. It was there for about 3 laps. And but while it was there, obviously they had the flag, yellow flags warning us. And all of a sudden, they pulled the yellow flags in, and I assumed that they pulled it ahead and pulled it in a safe spot. And And when I was coming down the straightaway, Bobby was hiding in the front. And I thought they pulled the car away because there was no more yellow flag showing to me. And when Bobby just moved away, there it was in front of me, and I was just had no way to avoid it.
You'd think with this many cars still out there, the yellow should have been there, wouldn't you?
There's no question that at least the stationary yellow should have stayed out there as long as that car was there as a warning, because when you're fighting for position, you have all the view in front of you is blocked off, and you just can't look that far ahead. So you assume that the situation is clear. And when the yellow was pulled, that was a real trick for me.
Now, you seem to be limping. Were you hurt?
No, not hurt at all.
But the Molson Indy hasn't been good to you in any of the years, has it?
Well, hasn't been, no. I was hoping for a good day today, to be honest with you.
Mario, sorry about the disappointment. Back upstairs.
Back down across the start-finish line, under green for the first time in 13 laps. It's Danny Sullivan, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, and Teo Fabi. Back down onto Lakeshore Boulevard, and this is the area where the accident occurred. In fact, it was that green car, car 8. He was leading Mario Andretti, much like he is leading car 4, Rick Mears now, when Andretti pulled him to pass and smashed into Roberto Guerrero. Car 8 is quite a story. The Porsche of Teo Fabi has the international flavor, Paul Page, now very much part of this kart circuit.
Well, of course, with the Porsche's presence beginning a little over a year and a half ago, now Alfa Romeo comes into the series. Arie Luyendyk, apparently after his pit stop, faltered a bit, coming up to speed now on that green flag. But we're seeing, in fact, Porsche himself is here at this race. It's the first time that he has been at an IndyCar race. Derek Walker, the team manager, is very excited about young Wolfgang Porsche being here. He is the son of Dr. Ferry Porsche, who is the designer not only of the Porsche, but of the Volkswagen. And they are taking a very definite interest in the IndyCar effort.
Wolfgang Porsche is here from Stuttgart, West Germany, as is Michael Piech from Audi. And, of course, Audi has enjoyed great success with that four-wheeled 90. Scott Goodyear driving it in the IMSA series. There is car 18, Bobby Rahal. Then will come the Porsche of Teo Fabi. Rahal, a winner last week, the first non-Chevrolet winner of 1989. Car 6 is Michael Andretti. He is running third, followed by Al Unser Jr., who is fourth. Then Bobby Rahal fifth. And the Porsche of Teo Fabi is sixth. We should talk about Fabi for just another minute. You mentioned Derek Walker. I hear this morning reports that Walker could lose Fabi. Honda is considering coming into kart racing with a Leighton House team, much like they have in Formula One, and they want Fabi as a driver.
Well, if there are such considerations, they haven't echoed their way through the halls of the IndyCars quite yet. The most often mentioned Japanese contingent is Toyota. There's a strong indication that Toyota has a definite interest. In fact, that they may, in fact, be building parts for the Chevrolet racing engine. But none of that has manifested itself yet. Remember, the IndyCars were scheduled to race in Japan at the start of the year. We're watching Arie Luyendyk as they work on his number 7 car. We saw it slowed earlier, and here comes little Al with an attempt.
Al Unser Jr. has moved into third place at the end of Lakeshore Boulevard. That's the passing area under braking as he goes ahead of Michael Andretti. He now follows only Emerson Fittipaldi and Danny Sullivan. Here is the pass. Michael Andretti is car 6. Al Jr. goes by.
A daring move. You see that he had to move onto the oil drive, that dust that is sprayed down where the Andretti and Guerrero accident occurred, or Andretti and Guerrero's empty car. And that, of course, means that he's not able to brake as well. It was probably a surprise to his longtime friend Michael Andretti that he would try it there, because you have to be certain that your braking is not nearly as effective on that surface.
Bobby Rahal just went by. There's Rahal following car 6. There's Al Jr., Michael Andretti, and then Bobby Rahal. Bobby Rahal left True Sports last year to go to the Craco team as we look at Arie Luyendyk in the pits. Luyendyk has never won a kart race, was third out in Portland, though. And right now, let's go down to Pat Gonzalez to bring us up to date on Luyendyk.
The Arie Luyendyk car, the problem is with the ignition. They came in on the previous lap. They changed one of the ignition wires. It was only running on 7 cylinders, but he has come back on a pit road, and the crew's still working on some kind of an electrical problem. The engine obviously not firing in all cylinders. Back up to the tower.
I was talking about Bobby Rahal as we look at Michael Andretti. Rahal had left True Sports. There's your leader, Danny Sullivan, to go over to Craco in hopes of getting a Chevrolet engine. He did not get one, but he and his Lola Cosworth were winners last week at the Meadowlands, stopping the Chevrolet domination. They had won each and every race, including the Indy 500 in 1989. I don't know, Paul Page. I think Emerson Fittipaldi now beginning to make a move on Danny Sullivan.
Well, Fittipaldi certainly has closed in. What he may be aware of is the fact that we're on the 27th lap. Now, the yellow flag period with a full course yellow gave them better fuel economy. Originally, most of the teams scheduled to stop between the 34th and the 37th circuit. But now that has been lengthened out a bit. But I'm sure what Fittipaldi is thinking is, I want to be right on the back of the leader, if not ahead of him, by the time the pit stops come around. So he's going to be feeling very racy at this point, trying to pass. And if he can't pass, certainly to close in and stay with the leader, and then probably follow the rule that if the leader goes in, you go in with him and make your stops together.
Into turn number 1 goes our race leader, Danny Sullivan, slowing down to about 90 miles an hour. He'll now goose it up to about 190 as he comes down Lakeshore Boulevard, and he is pursued by Emerson Fittipaldi, both in the Penske PC-18 Chevrolet.
Oh, you can't help but love this kind of a battle. You watch as Fittipaldi very slowly closes in on Danny Sullivan. It's a ballet that is played at 175, 180 miles an hour, but is really measured only in inches, as Fittipaldi realizes a foot or two here and then loses 3 feet there and then gains it back. It's wonderful to watch such a fight.
And I'll tell you, you never count out car number 2. He is a product of a great racing family. And, of course, those dirt tracks down in the American Southwest, that is our defending champion here at the Molson Indy, Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. was only the 5th fastest in qualifying on Friday, moved all the way up to the front row yesterday. Danny Sullivan down at about 155 miles an hour, pursued by Fittipaldi past the start-finish area.
A little bit ago.
29 laps. Sorry, Paul. It is Sullivan, followed by Fittipaldi, Unser, Andretti, Rahal, Fabi, Mears, Pruitt, and Scott Goodyear has moved up into 9th place.
A great positioning for Scott Goodyear. He's really on a wonderful charge. He may be in the top 5 before this race is over. A little bit ago, we saw Ari Leyendijk once again, the black number 7 car, and it's running very slowly on the course. I think probably whatever their electronics problem is, it appears to be a very serious one and one that they are not able to repair.
Danny Sullivan is pursued by Emerson Fittipaldi, Al Unser Jr., Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, and Teo Fabi.
Magnificent shot of Al Unser Jr., who is perhaps in his favorite position other than winning a race. He is closing on 1st and 2nd place. He has a totally clear track in front of him, with the exception of 1st and 2nd. But you know they're going very fast, so he doesn't have to hesitate at all. For his purposes, he has a clear circuit. He can run just as fast as he wants to try and catch.
And again, Fittipaldi seems just pulling back. There's Steve Saleen, car 59, about to be lapped. And no, Fittipaldi was going to make a move there. Saw Saleen and now drifts back into 2nd place. So the slower cars holding up our race leader, Danny Sullivan. Sullivan goes by Saleen. And Fittipaldi does the same.
Emerson Fittipaldi is so track-wise. He is conscious of those slower-moving cars just ahead and is very good at adjusting his speed so he arrives at those slower-moving cars at a time which is advantageous to him but not necessarily advantageous to the car that is following him. He's very, very good. Of course, we're talking a 2-time Formula One champion there that hopes to become, before this season is over, an IndyCar World Champion.
Emerson Fittipaldi pursuing Danny Sullivan past the Prince's Gates, back down onto Lakeshore Boulevard. Danny Sullivan still physically, at least, in top shape here. His first race back after injuring that right arm in practice for this year's Indianapolis 500. Here's where Fittipaldi was going to make a move in the last lap. The slower driver, Saleen, prevented it. Does not do it this time. Emerson Emerson Fittipaldi, not only a great driver, Paul Page, but he is a walking conglomerate. Businesses all over the world.
Oh, yeah, he has just a couple of 100,000 acres under cultivation in Brazil, a Mercedes dealership. He has boats named after him. He has all kind of automotive aftermarket accessories. There you see Scott Brayton coming back into the action after a pit stop that would have been in a pretty good time. That's the Dick Simon team, and they're pretty good at race tactics. Now, they've apparently decided to stop their car right on the original game plan, right on the 33rd lap of the race, despite the fact that they probably have a better situation owing to the long yellow with the fuel economy. You also saw the car of Arie Luyendyk they continue to work on into the pits without any success at all.
So Dick Simon not having a good day here. Luyendyk races for Dick Simon, as does Scott Brayton. That is car number 1 of Danny Sullivan, pursued by Fittipaldi. No, sir. Fittipaldi does not make the pass, but look at this. Al Unser Jr. is right on them, running in 3rd place as they come up beside Exhibition Stadium. Now the left-hand turn. This is not a good passing area here.
Well, Al Unser is loving every minute of this because he knows that Sullivan is having to alter his line to prevent Fittipaldi from getting a good run into the corner. On the other hand, Fittipaldi is very good at making this little dart to the right, worry Sullivan to the right, and then Sullivan will move over to try to avoid that, and Fittipaldi will say, okay, this time we'll do it to the left. All of this really goes to the advantage of little Al, who can watch these tactics occur and place himself in a good position to get both of them if they have a mistake.
There is no question, Danny Sullivan, there's car 14, A.J. Foyt, the great Texan, who started at the back of the grid. He's about to be lapped by Danny Sullivan. There's no question Sullivan's the man under pressure here, but he begins to put some distance between himself and the second-place car of Emerson Fittipaldi as Sullivan goes by A.J. Foyt and comes up on Brayton.
Well, they're running through a great deal of traffic, and they have to tiptoe running through here. You see Michael Andretti closing into this fight as well because of this traffic. Michael has been able to close in right on the back of Al Unser Jr. So with the slower traffic running just ahead, all of the front 4 have been able to close up on one another, and it's a pretty good time to do so. They've completed 36 laps of the race now. They all have to be thinking about pit stops. In fact, some of the slower cars have already begun to make their stops.
We saw car 14 briefly, the great Texan A.J. Foyt. Paul, a lot of people wonder why Foyt doesn't do better. You were explaining to me why yesterday. I mean, it's really amazing he does as well as he does.
Well, A.J. has so much else going on. He loves to race. Probably if he were a more reasonable man, a more practical man, which no race driver ever is, he would probably say, why don't I pay attention to my business? But he is, after all, a race driver first and foremost, and he likes to race. But his other opportunities don't give him enough time to test. So when A.J. comes to the track, it's virtually without any test time whatsoever. And yet he is capable of getting up, running with the leaders, and leading a race. And that tells you how really great that champion is.
Danny Sullivan is leading. Scott Goodyear is running ninth. The other 2 Canadians are still running. John Jones is running 12th after starting at the back of the pack, and Ludwig Heimrath is now running 14th. It's Sullivan, Fittipaldi, Unser, Andretti, and Rahal, the top 5. There's Ludwig Heimrath, car number 71, and Ludwig is about to be lapped by the leader, Danny Sullivan. Ludwig is running 14th.
Bernard Jourdain pulls out of the leader's way and into the pits, and as Danny flashes by this time, his crew will tell him that they would like to see him stop in just 3 more laps. So they're going to stop him on lap number 40, which will carry him a good 5 or 6 laps beyond the original game plan, and that gives all of the leaders a tremendous advantage in this race because they no longer have to worry about fuel economy. They can run flat out to the checkered flag. The first stops for the leaders coming up in 3 to 4 laps now.
You just saw the shot from Ludwig Heimrath's car as the top 3, Sullivan, Fittipaldi, and Unser, have now lapped Ludwig Heimrath, who is running in the McKenzie car in position number 14. Our leader is Danny Sullivan. He is followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Al Unser Jr., Michael Andretti, and Bobby Rahal.
Well, as we watch Al Unser Jr. coming down for his stop, they've also told the leader, Danny Sullivan, that they want him in on the next lap. There is Dominic Dobson as he makes his stop. He is not a contender at the front of the field. Al Unser Jr., who is into the pits as well, is one of the contenders. And the lead crew, there is Al Unser Jr. making his stop. All 4 tires, a full 40 gallons of fuel, and they get him back in the course. Nice work by the Gallus Racing team But the thing to watch now is right down at the end of the pits, and we watched them as they came out over that yellow line. There's a very strict rule. You can't exit the pits and get all four wheels over that yellow line. It's a safety matter. They don't want the car to drift out into the racing line when it's exiting the pits. Now the Penske team has tires and equipment laid out in the pits. 6 men over the wall. That's the rule, no more. And they are waiting for the leader, this man, Danny Sullivan.
Al Unser Jr. was running third. Went in for fuel and tires, is now dropped down to the 7th position. And into the pits comes our race leader for Roger Penske, Danny Sullivan.
To the Penske team, ready to go to work on this car. Chuck Sprague, the team manager, watches this car as it rolls in. The crew ready to go to work now. You see they've made the connection to the fuel on the side of the car. You watch the time roll off. A great pit stop is about 16 seconds. It is really controlled by the fuel. Already all 4 tires are on the car. And look at that. 13.9 seconds. What a great stop for the Penske team. Now we watch Emerson Fittipaldi. He should be due.
He is due indeed, and Danny Sullivan is dropped down to the number 5 position. So it is Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Bobby Rahal, Rick Mears, and Danny Sullivan.
And in reality, Andretti is just behind Fittipaldi. He should be able to pick the lead up if he can stay out a little longer than Fittipaldi. This is first and second at this moment on the race course. Fittipaldi trying to hold off a charging Michael, and they both come in together. Good move by Michael Andretti.
So Fittipaldi, driving for Pat Patrick in the PCA Team Chevrolet, is into the pits. Remember, Danny Sullivan's was sub 16 seconds. Also into the pits is Michael Andretti. Sullivan and Al Unser Jr. have already pitted. Still to come in, Bobby Rahal, Rick Mears, Teo Bobby, and the Canadian Scott Goodyear.
But he stalled the car. He's not able to get the car out quite as quickly. A little problem clearing the car of Rahal. Stopped just in front of him. That lost some time for them as well.
Andretti is right behind Rahal. There you see that line. The line on the left of your screen. 4 wheels cannot be over that. It is a safety factor. Here is Rick Mears. Rick Mears is our new leader. A winner this year at Phoenix, Arizona, at West Allis, Wisconsin, a 3-time winner of the Indy 500. And Paul Page, we keep hearing that he can't race on road cars, but he says, I'm getting stronger all the time.
Well, I keep hearing it, but I don't believe it. I think that Rick Mears, at any time, is going to score a road course victory, and it's going to be just like a new driver when he scores his first win. Once Rick realizes that it can happen, it will happen again and again. Now, the reason that it doesn't happen for Rick recently is that he had his feet terribly injured in that crash at San Air. He had a long recovery. He has some very painful nerve endings in there. And when you're driving on a road course, it requires a lot more heavy braking as Rick comes in for his pit stop as the leader of the race. And so it's a little tender for Rick, but he's getting stronger every race he runs. I think he's back to full strength. And you're going to find Rick Mears in the winner's circle very quickly, if not today. With Penske crew there.
And with Rick Mears into the pits, Al Unser Jr. is our new race leader, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, and Danny Sullivan. 16 seconds is considered good. That is a sub-16-second pit stop for Rick Mears. There's our race leader, the defending champion, Al Unser Jr. Unser Jr. involved in that spectacular brush-up with Emerson Fittipaldi late in this year's Indianapolis 500. It's Al Unser Jr., our leader, through 42 of 103 laps. He is followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, Danny Sullivan, Bobby Rahal, and Teo Bobby.
Some interesting tactics now by the Gallus Racing team. They brought their car in ahead of the rest of the leaders, and for the moment at least have been able to cycle him out in front of the field. Well, once you get little Al in front of a race, there's not a whole lot that's going to stop him or slow him down. He's going to be very tough to catch.
Al Unser Jr. now leading by about 3.5 seconds over Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Danny Sullivan, and Bobby Rahal.
And the Sullivan-Fittipaldi fight is the only fight on the circuit itself. Al Unser Jr. has a 5-second lead over Michael Andretti, and then Michael is a good 3 seconds in front of Fittipaldi. But Fittipaldi has the problem of a charging Danny Sullivan climbing all over his back.
Al Unser Jr., who was a winner, a controversial winner, though, at Long Beach, California. Paul, you covered that race, and you remember the ending very, very well.
Well, it got an awful lot of media coverage. I was in the booth with Al's uncle, Bobby Unser, when the situation occurred. The situation quite simply was this. Al Unser was charging, trying to take over the lead, about 12 laps left to go in the race, and in front was Mario Andretti. As they came into the third turn, little Al tried to find the inside line on Andretti as Andretti turned across the corner and slowed just a bit because Tom Sneva's car was slowing on the course ahead of him. When that happened, little Al bumped into the back of Mario Andretti's car. While it damaged the front of little Al's car, he was able to continue on. Mario Andretti was out of the race. Well, there were a lot of angry words, but the two drivers got together a couple of weeks later at the Andretti home in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. They talked it over and said, we won't discuss it again. We understand the nature of aggressiveness, and that was just a racing accident.
And, of course, if you are just joining us, there's your leader, Al Unser Jr. Mario Andretti, involved in a spectacular accident, was not injured, and is out of this race. Now, look at this. The top Canadian is now John Jones in 12th. Let's find out what happened to Scott Goodyear back down to the pits and Pat Gonzalez.
Brian, the problem with Goodyear's car is that he stayed out there too long and ran out of fuel. They're trying to get him back here to pit lane, and they'll try to refuel the car and get him back out there, but he had climbed all the way up into the top 10. A great run for Scotty Goodyear so far, but the crew's waiting for him back upstairs.
All right, Paul Page, whose fault is that? Here's a young man that has not raced an open-wheel kart competition for 2 years, was 8th here 2 years ago, a spectacular top 10 placing, and he runs out of fuel.
Well, the fuel situation is one of checks and balances. Most of the top-running race cars have some onboard computering that tells the driver exactly how much fuel he has left, or like in the case of a Bobby Rahal car, not how much fuel, but how many laps he has left. That's read out to him on a digital instrumentation on the console of the car. Other teams, like the Goodyear team, the real onus rides with the crew because they are calculating the stops all the way. And they know what the fuel average of the car should be from tests run earlier in the week, and most specifically the final practice on Saturday. It's really their obligation to call the car in. If they didn't get it done, or if Goodyear misses the signal because he's in a fight when he goes past the pit board, well, then you run out of fuel. It happens, by the way, to the best of them. The Penske team had Rick Mears in the lead at the Portland race, and they miscalculated their fuel by a lap. Rick Mears ran out on the race course.
It's interesting you should mention Portland as we look at car number 6, Michael Andretti, who's running second to Al Unser Jr. Andretti, Michael, has led every race this year with the exception of Portland and has yet to win. So the top Canadian now, with Goodyear running out of fuel, is John Jones from Thunder Bay, Ontario, running in the number 12 position. The leader, Al Unser Jr. in car number 2, followed by this man, Michael Andretti. Andretti's moving up a bit. He's gained a couple of seconds, now about 3.5 seconds behind Unser. In third place, Fittipaldi. There's car 20 of Emerson Fittipaldi. He is followed by Danny Sullivan. Bobby Rahal, a winner last week at New Jersey. Teo Fabi in the Porsche is running 6th. Rick Mears is running 7th. Fabrizio Barbazza is running 8th. Scott Pruitt for True Sport, second in Detroit, is running 9th. And rounding out the top 10 for Domino's is Raul Bussell, the Brazilian who drove a very good race at the Indy 500.
Well, a brilliant race at the Indy 500 when you think about it, considering the 198th lap incident between Fittipaldi and Al Unser Jr. Had Fittipaldi not been able to get the car under control, Boissel may very well have won the Indianapolis 500-mile race. He's having a great year driving for Doug Shearson and the Shearson team out of Adrian, Michigan. As we see Scott Pruitt, this is not a scheduled stop. They're working on the left front suspension of the car. Perhaps we're talking about a brush with the wall or something here. Suspension looks good. The crew's taking the car off the jacks, and they're going to send Pruitt back into competition.
Car number 20 is running third behind Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti. And speaking of Al Jr., let's get on to the pits, and here's Pat Gonzalez. Pat?
Rick Gallis with me. Rick, Al seems to be really setting a hot pace right now. How do things seem to be going out there for him?
Everything looks dandy. You know, it's just guys did a good job in the pits, and we were able to get a hold of those guys, get ahead of them. So it's a long race to go.
Have you calculated when you're going to make that final stop here on pit road?
Not yet. We just really haven't figured it out. We're looking at the fuel counter now.
No problem with fuel because of that long caution earlier?
That helped a lot.
Okay, Rick, Al having a great run here in his 100th IndyCar start.
Thank you.
Back upstairs.
Well, Al Unser Jr. is running at the top of the field. He's also running the fastest laps. He's run laps at 104.7 miles an hour. That is by almost a full mile an hour faster than everyone else in the field right now. Randy Lewis back in for a stop.
Speaking of being back in, we understand car number 71, Ludwig Heimrath Jr., driving for Jim McKenzie, has stopped on the course. There's the view from the onboard camera. So that means both McKenzie cars are out. Scotty Goodyear was running in the top 10 when he ran out of fuel. Heimrath, who's had all kinds of bad luck here in Toronto in the past, is now out of the race. The lone Canadian still in the running is John Jones, last year's Rookie of the Year on the CART circuit, currently running in the number 12 position. Danny Sullivan is car number 1, led for the early part of the race. Then following a series of pit stops, he dropped down into 3rd place. There's Bobby Rahal. A lot of talk that Bobby Rahal is going to combine with another team next year, Paul.
Well, the Craco team, Rahal's team, owned by Maury Cranes, is going to combine with Al Unser Jr.'s team, the Rick Gallis team. We just saw Rick Gallis, an interview there. And they're going to combine, which will do a couple of things. It will create a 2-car team. It will give Bobby Rahal a Chevrolet power plant that he does not have at this moment and cannot get because Chevrolet limits the number of teams that can have the Chevrolet engine. And when you have a 2-car team, that gives you a lot more data to evaluate at any racetrack. In other words, if we have 2 cars, you have one, Brian, I have another. We start the day with 2 entirely different setups. And then after the first practice, we talk about what may have worked good. That is better than just you going out and trying one and having to come back in and shift to another one. On board with Bobby Rahal now.
Right now, let's update just, Paul, what exactly happened to Ludwig Heimrath. Pat Gonzalez, can you bring us up to date?
Ron Hemmelgarn, both of you drivers were running very, very well in the early going, but you've had some problems here. What exactly is the problem with Ludwig's car?
Well, we're not really sure yet. He's stalled down in turn 2, and we're waiting to hear exactly what happened, but they've tried to push him and restart him, but he won't start, so we have no idea yet what happened, and we're still waiting to hear on Goodyear, too, how he's doing.
You've got to be impressed with Scotty Goodyear's run so far.
It was really going good. We was in the top 10 most of the day, and he was chipping away at it, so I think we'd have finished well, but we've got to wait and see what happens.
Back upstairs to Brian Williams.
Well, a tough day for Ron Hemmelgarn and the McKenzie team. The Lola Judds both out of the race. And there's car 6, Michael Andretti. Michael Andretti has led every race, with the exception of Portland, has not yet won in 1989. Michael Andretti down past the start-finish area, lapping a car number 10. That is the Irishman Derek Daly, a former Formula One champion. We were talking about super teams as we look at Michael Andretti. Of course, he and his father out of the race after that accident, not injured. The big team. You talk about sharing information, though. Mario says that's why the CART drivers don't want teams. They don't trust each other. I felt I could trust my son.
Well, the nice thing that came from his son was that finally being on the same team, they can have family dinners together without them worrying about giving a secret away now. So the family is much closer together now that they're a team.
Well, we see 2-car teams, of course, in Formula One. So, Paul, would you predict, say, within the next several years, there'll be predominantly at least the big guns 2-car teams?
Well, there is a joke going around the circuit with this sudden move for Gallis and Craco to join together, that in a couple of years, CART will become 2 giant teams. I don't think that'll happen, but I think certainly this move has gotten the attention of a number of the teams who say, well, maybe we can combine with somebody else and share resources, and that may work. Some of them may not be business relationships, but they may become testing relationships where they share the expenses of a test and also share some information.
Rahal is now running 5th behind Danny Sullivan. There's car 1, Sullivan. On the left of your screen, Rahal. Sullivan is 4th. Rahal is 5th as they go by the slower car, the Toshiba of Randy Lewis. You see the walls that Paul's talked about. This is a road course. Now, Fittipaldi points out on a street course, say like Montreal, a Formula One course in Montreal, you can run off the track and you run onto grass. You run off the track here, and as we saw earlier with Mario Andretti hitting that Guerrero car, you run into concrete. Had Guerrero been racing on a street course, they could have just pushed it off to the side. So running on these road courses, very, very, very tough. The leader right now is Al Unser Jr., followed by Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Danny Sullivan, and Bobby Rahal. Really, the only fight right now is the Lola Cosworth of Rahal trying to make a move on that Penske Chevrolet into turn number 3 at about 45, 50 miles an hour. Sharp right-hander. They'll now make a left-hand turn down by the food building at the Canadian National Exhibition. This is really an area, Paul, of, as you pointed out earlier in the course description, follow the leader up underneath the Gardner Expressway. No great passing chances till they come back down toward the lakeshore and through that spectacular turn 11 at about 155, 160 miles an hour.
Yeah, but it's this area that Rahal is making up the distance. His car is handling a little bit better than Sullivan through here, so he is able to pull up and get right in contact. Now, when you get out in the open, the Chevrolet racing engine runs a little bit faster. See how the interval opens up here? It'll open up a little bit more after this first corner by the Princess Gates. Rahal then will have to use the backside of the circuit to try to play catch-up again. Now, the Rahal team has to be a little disappointed. They were counting on a race without any full-course yellows because they think that Cosworth engine in Rahal's car could have gone a little bit further. Look at Rahal, though, under braking. At the end of the long stretch there, is able to stay in contact with Danny. If he keeps it up, within a lap or two, he may be past him.
Again, high-end speed. By that we mean speed on the high-speed straightaways, is the real strength of the Chevrolet engine, and that's why Fabi and the Porsche, people like Rahal and the Cosworth, are not able to make a move on the Chevrolets. They're great at the low-end speed through the tight and narrow sections, but when you get into those high-end speed areas, they just open it up. Here is our race leader, car number 2, Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. now with about a 2.5-second lead over Michael Andretti. He is followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Danny Sullivan, Bobby Rahal, and Teo Fabi, with a Porsche is running 6th. Through turn number 3 goes our leader, Al Jr.
You know, it's awful tough if you take the cowling off of these cars and show ordinary spectator or fan one of these racing engines. If you didn't have the make right there on the top of the engine, it'd be hard to tell the difference. They are V8s. They are both approximately the same style of V8. They are actually coming from past generations, the same development. Chevrolet just breathes a little bit more. It uses a pump configuration that's slightly different, but they're all 161 cubic inch engines. They all develop between 750, 800 horsepower. The Chevrolet engine will turn 12,500 RPM when it's running at its peak. That is really turning.
Michael Andretti in car number 6 is currently running 2nd. His father, Mario, out of the race after striking the parked car of Roberto Guerrero right in about this area of the racetrack. Now, there you see the gap between Michael and the leader, car 2, Al Jr. There's Unser. There's Michael Andretti running 2nd. Fittipaldi, the pole sitter, is running 3rd as they come off that lightning-fast straightaway on Lakeshore Boulevard. Michael Andretti is steadily gaining on Al Jr.
Exactly what I was going to mention. He was 5 seconds back about 3 laps ago. He has closed 3 seconds down in those 3 laps, averaging about a second a lap. But now, certainly Al Unser Jr. sees him and will begin to readjust his pace. When Al is running alone out in front, while it appears that he's still very fast, he's still running laps at 104 or so miles an hour, he can relax just a little bit. That relaxation may only be in microseconds, but it does slow the car down a little bit on a total lap time and allows second place to catch up.
Michael perhaps had a confidence problem. He's led every race with the exception of Portland, yet has not won this year. You probably know him as well as anyone.
No, Michael never has. He's from an Italian family. They don't have confidence problems. Michael is, in fact, when you consider it, and I said this to him a week ago, I said, you may be at this moment driving the best racing of anybody on the circuit. And he agreed with me. He said, I feel very good about what I'm doing. I just can't get the car to the checkered flag.
Car 4 is 3-time Indy champion Rick Mears, who's currently in 7th place. And our leader, Al Unser, is about to lap Rick Mears. Mears again running 7th. Unser the leader, followed by Andretti, Fittipaldi, Sullivan, Rahal, Fabi, Mears, Boycell, Pruitt, and Barbazza rounding out the top 10.
What we have at the front of the field with Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti is once again 2 longtime friends. Second-generation drivers. They came to the racetracks in their diapers. They played with one another, you know, sitting down at the end of the pits back in the unrestricted areas. They play in the sand and dirt as they grew up together. They've raced each other in go-karts and everything else that you can imagine. They know each other perfectly. They love to race with one another. Al Unser Jr. having a little trouble getting around Rick Mears, who is not anxious to be lapped.
As Paul Page pointed out earlier, an accident at Saint-Air, Quebec in 1984, severely injuring the ankles and feet of Rick Mears. So he does prefer oval racing. He's a good road course driver. In fact, holds the record of 4 consecutive road course victories set back in 1981, and also is the only driver to win on every road course in one season.
Well, in the IndyCar season, the PPG IndyCar World Series is not only the individual fights, such as here in Toronto, but is the season-long fight for the championship. Mears felt that if he would be where he is right now with regard to points, when they go to the ovals next, because they go to 2 500-mile races, he would be in great shape to win the championship. He's still feeling very confident about this season.
Don't forget, Fittipaldi has won 4 races this year. Rick Mears, about to be passed by Al Unser Jr., has won 2. Really, the best fight is between Ray Hall and Danny Sullivan. Bobby Rahal is all over Danny Sullivan. There's Sullivan in car 1. Rahal, car 18. The Craco Lola Cosworth. The Penske PC-18 Chevrolet of Sullivan goes through the corner first. He is currently running 4th. Rahal running 5th, and Paul Page.
And Rahal gets held up. Dominic Dobson was aware that one car was there, but he was not aware that, look, Rahal is mad. He knows that he got cut off from a good battle. Finally, he gets past Dominic Dobson. I think Dobson only recognized that the first car was there, didn't know that Rahal was there. All of this work that Rahal has done for the past 10 laps or so just went out the window.
You saw Rahal raise his fist as Dobson held him up. He was all over Danny Sullivan. There's our race leader, Al Unser Jr., the defending champion here at the Molson Indy, and a winner this year in Long Beach, California, as his wife looks on.
That's Shelley Hunter. She worries herself to death. She's extremely competitive. She worries, she prays, she shouts, she cheers. She really loves to watch her husband race.
Paul, I guess the biggest change so far occurred during that section when the leaders all pitted. Sullivan was leading at the time. He's currently running 4th, and I would imagine we have to start thinking pit stop again very soon.
Now, let's just consider this. Al Unser Jr. is the leader of the race. He is a mere 3 seconds ahead. In fact, the interval is closed as they just flashed across the line to a little under 2 seconds ahead of Michael Andretti. Well, that time can be made up in the pits. The nice thing about this form of racing is that for an interval there, during the pit stop, the driver relinquishes the entire race to the skill of the pit crew. There have been times, it happened to Bobby Rahal 2 years ago at the Meadowlands, in which he came into the pits in 2nd place. The crew did such a superlative job that he left the pits in the lead of the race. Will that happen? Well, in very few laps, we may find out as the battle turns away from the drivers and to the Gallus team and to the team of Michael Andretti. Kevin Cogan makes a stop as his crew goes to work on the car.
Kevin Cogan was the man who crashed into that ABC camera, one of the great racing shots of all time during this year's Indy 500. Michael Andretti is running 2nd to Al Unser Jr., and into the pits comes Michael Andretti. Let's go down to Ken Daniels.
Thank you, Brian. We are going to keep a clock now on Michael Andretti's pit stop as they will change front and back tires, all 4, as well as take on fuel. The clock on Michael Andretti coming up to the 10-second mark. 16 seconds is a good pit, and they're still waiting to put in the fuel, and away he goes. And it's a good time of 15 seconds even for Michael Andretti. 14 seconds for Michael Andretti.
Really a superlative stop for the Andretti team. They've done a nice job. That Newman-Haas organization, that is a blistering fast stop. I hope that they got all of the fuel in. Apparently they did, or they certainly wouldn't have let the car go. And they stopped a little bit earlier than I would have expected. We've seen a range of about 35 laps on a fuel tank. They stopped at the 70th lap. They have to go to the 103rd lap. They're running a little bit harder in racing action, so he may be on fumes by the time he gets to the end of the race.
Right now, Michael Andretti has dropped down with that pit stop to the number 5 position. Here's your leader, Al Unser Jr. Fittipaldi is now 2nd, yet to pit. Sullivan 3rd, yet to pit. Rahal, also yet to pit, is running 4th. And, of course, our leader, Al Jr., has yet to come into the pits. Now, through 71 out of 103 laps in the 1989 Molson Indy, Al Unser Jr., the defending champion, is the leader. However, he has yet to pit. The top Canadian, the only Canadian still in this race, is car 65. That is John Jones running in the number 14 position. Scott Goodyear from Willowdale, Ontario. As we look at Emerson Fittipaldi running second, Goodyear from Willowdale, Ontario was in the top 10 for Mackenzie and Hemmelgarn when he ran out of fuel. The other Canadian also driving for Mackenzie Hemmelgarn, Ludwig Heinrath Jr., went out of the race with mechanical problems. And that is A.J. Foyt, the great Texas veteran, car number 14, who qualified slowest for this race, ending his racing day here in Toronto.
Shut her down, pulled her off the circuit. You know, I'm beginning to wonder about the situation with the Gallus team and Al Unser Jr. If you remember, in the first flurry of stops, he was one of the first cars to head into the pits. Well, now we've seen Michael make his stop. We have not seen Danny Sullivan or Rick Mears or Bobby Rahal head for the pits yet. Is that a prediction that Michael has a problem, or is it an indication that the Al Unser Jr. car is getting a great deal more fuel mileage than we anticipated?
Bobby Rahal still trying to catch Danny Sullivan. Rahal and Sullivan are now running third and fourth, respectively. Car number 20, there he is. Emerson Fittipaldi is now running second to Al Unser Jr. Fittipaldi with a spectacular show here yesterday as Rahal does not go by Sullivan in turn 3. Fittipaldi with a spectacular show here yesterday. A sub-60-second lap. The first time in history. Very impressive with all the heat. That's on board with Bobby Rahal.
Oh, I like that with Rahal. You saw what he did. For several laps, for maybe 10 laps, he kept darting to the inside of Danny Sullivan. Sullivan kept pulling down to the inside to keep Rahal trapped and from moving through. So on this time as they come by, Rahal with a little better run comes to the outside. Fittipaldi makes his stop, the second place car. They fit the car with 4 fresh tires. The time here now is controlled by the fuel flow. They want to get every drop of fuel into the car. They've got it. Down off the jacks, Fittipaldi back into the fight.
Now, he did not stall it this time. Fittipaldi stalled it coming out of his first pit stop. You see the yellow line. 2 wheels can be over, not 4. That is purely for safety. Now into turn number 1. Running in 5th place is Emerson Fittipaldi. Our leader, Al Unser Jr., has yet to pit. Danny Sullivan, there he is a second. There's Bobby Rahal third. They also have yet to pit. Michael Andretti has been in. He is running 4th, followed by Fittipaldi 5th. Hale Fabi is 6th. Rick Mears is 7th. Pruitt is 8th. Boisel is 9th. And Barbatza is 10th.
So the best battle on the course is this one. The 18 car of Bobby Rahal and the 1 car, the one denoting the defending IndyCar World Champion Danny Sullivan, as they continue to fight their way around the course. With the stops, Danny Sullivan now runs in second. Bobby Rahal is in third.
Pits is Danny Sullivan, who stalled his car. They're now going back for more fuel. Unser has not pitted. He is the leader. Sullivan was running second. This is a real blow for Danny Sullivan, Paul.
They're concerned about something with the fuel tank. They want to get every drop that they can into the car. He started forward, lurched forward, then they pulled it back, reconnected the fuel hoses, and now he is back into the fight. That has been a very long stop and very costly for Sullivan, who was definitely in the fight. We still wait. There is the Porsche of Teo Fabi. They make the stop. That car rolls away. He was running in 7th place at the time he rolled in for the stop. This is the car that we wonder about. He should be due for a stop at any moment.
He is our race leader, Al Unser Jr., he's pulled over, I believe. Unser may have run out of fuel
on the course.
Unbelievable.
I was just beginning to calculate the distance. He stopped on lap 39, and I'm thinking to myself, he's carrying that car a tremendous distance. The crew was laid out anticipating his stop at this point in the race. Now they are looking down the course saying, where is their driver? Well, you can see where he is. He's stopped by the course. He's disconnected the steering wheel. He's going to climb out of the car because the car is empty, and there is the new leader. Bobby Rahal picks up the lead of the race.
Bobby Rahal in a Lola Cosworth was with True Sports last year. A winner last Sunday at the Meadowlands is our new race leader. Al Unser Jr. Unbelievable, but I got to hand it to you, Paul Page. 3 or 4 laps ago, you raised the point. You said, why isn't Unser in yet? Because he was the first to come in for the first pit stop about 35 laps ago. Unbelievable situation. Gallus Racing and Al Unser Jr. running out of fuel. No excuse for this.
Well, the car owner, Rick Gallus, is a gambler. He really loves to race, as does little Al. No doubt they got on the radio and they said, let's stretch it just as far as we can. Well, they stretched it just about 3/4 of a lap too far.
Car number 2, Al Unser Jr., Lola Chevrolet, is out of the race. And here's the Lola Cosworth of Bobby Rahal, who won here in 1986. Now, remember, Bobby Rahal won last Sunday. There's a very disappointed Shelley Unser, who, Paul, you said she really gets into things.
Oh, she's probably more disappointed than the rest of the team at this point, if that's at all possible. You see her, she just shrugged her shoulders there. The question now becomes Rahal. Can Rahal get his cycling done as efficiently as possible because he's in the lead?
Let's quickly go down to Pat Gonzalez.
I'm with Shelley Unser. Shelley, Al had such a great run going, and it looks like you pushed it just one lap too far. You got to be awfully disappointed.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. He looked really good for a while there. I don't know what happened, but I don't know if he ran out of gas or if something broke. We'll have to wait and see.
Do you think this will make him that much more determined the rest of the season? After coming so close here, it looked like he was pretty much on his way to a win again.
He's always determined. You know, he gets over it pretty quick, so he'll be there for the next one, ready to go.
Shelley Unser, as we'll send it back upstairs now to Brian Williams.
Well, it's very interesting. The first race of the year won by Rick Mears at Phoenix. Our leader right now is Bobby Rahal, as they now push the Unser car out of the way, car number 2. Now, I mentioned earlier this year, Rick Mears winning at Phoenix. There's Rahal. Long Beach won by Unser. Indianapolis, Detroit, Portland, Cleveland, all won by Fittipaldi. Mears winning at Milwaukee, as well as Phoenix. And Rahal winning at the Meadowlands. And the story there is, he is the only non-Chevrolet winner in 1989. As we look at that Chevrolet engine of Michael Andretti, Andretti is more than 10 seconds behind our leader, Bobby Rahal. Michael Andretti is running second. Emerson Fittipaldi is third. Another 6 seconds behind Andretti. Running fourth is Danny Sullivan. Running fifth is Rick Mears. Bobby is sixth. Pruitt is seventh. Barbatza is eighth. Boycell ninth. And running 10th, well, they have Al Unser Jr. listed as 10th right now. He is out of the race, of course, and will go down further. The only Canadian still alive is John Jones, running in the number 13 position. Into the pits comes our race leader, Bobby Rahal. All right, Paul, there's our new leader.
And Michael Andretti flashes past as Rahal comes to a stop, picks up the lead of the race. The question is Michael Andretti catchable now? Rahal, routine stops. Just that quickly, he is back into the action. He has to catch Michael Andretti. He lost second place already to Emerson Fittipaldi. He comes out of the pits in third position, but he is well behind first and second. The contest now is between this car, the number 6 car of Michael Andretti, and Emerson Fittipaldi, who is currently running second, just 9 seconds back.
And again, we talked about high-end speed. Remember, both Michael Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi, there's Al Jr.'s car out of the race. Both Andretti and Fittipaldi on Chevrolet engines. They're capable of higher speeds. They can pull away on the straights. Rahal can catch them in the tight areas with superior driving in that Cosworth, but he's going to have trouble reeling in those powerful Chevrolet engines. Michael Andretti by 9 seconds over Emerson Fittipaldi, by nearly 50 seconds over Danny Sullivan. Sullivan is third. Rahal is fourth. Bobby is fifth. Mears is now running sixth.
And so Michael has to be very satisfied. He has an 8-second lead over Emerson Fittipaldi. There are 21 laps left to go in the contest here. The question is, can Michael hold on and hold off a charging Fittipaldi? The two cars are different. The Fittipaldi car running in second is a PC-18. This is a Lola. They have identical power. I suggested earlier that young Michael is doing some of the finest driving that we're seeing on the circuit. I think now we're going to see a display like we've never seen before because he has this monkey to get off his back. He's led every race but one this year, but he hasn't been able to finish them, and he certainly hasn't been able to win them. Well, here's his opportunity. He had the opportunity a week ago at the Meadowlands and brushed the wall with the left side of the car, taking it out of the competition. That certainly is in the back of his mind, too. He has to be careful, but you can't be too careful when it's Fittipaldi that's closing.
That is Fittipaldi. Now back up to 10 seconds. He was 8 seconds behind the race leader, Michael Andretti. Emerson Fittipaldi, who set a lap record of 59.499 seconds, and winning the pole here yesterday in the heat and humidity, goes into turn number 3, now 10.5 seconds behind Michael Andretti, as he now begins to lap the slower cars. That is car 16 of Jan Beekes.
So Fittipaldi is actually falling a little backwards. When Michael came out of the pits, Fittipaldi had closed to within 9 seconds. Now he is back to 10.3 seconds behind Michael. If he wants to catch him, he's going to have to pick up the pace.
Emerson Fittipaldi, a two-time Formula One champion at 25 years of age with Lotus, and then, of course, for McLaren, now trying to become only the second driver, Mario Andretti the other, to win both the Formula One World Championship and the championship in kart racing. There is the lone Canadian still running, car 65, John Jones from Thunder Bay, Ontario. Jones is running in 12th place. Now, he qualified much better than that. Rahal, more problems as Bobby Rahal, running third, is back into the pits with that Cosworth engine.
Well, he returns, but no indication. They're going for the cowling on the car. The time on this will no longer matter because it's unscheduled, and obviously something is seriously wrong. He was running in third place. There comes the cowling. Let's see where they reach for in that engine compartment. Down onto the top of the engine. Normally what they do on a stop like this is they reach in and they snatch out the black spark blocks on the car. Obviously the onboard camera is working without any difficulty. Bobby Rahal gets a cold drink. Let's go down to Ken.
I'm here in the pit of Bobby Rahal. It is a broken exhaust header according to the crew here. So it looks like he is done. A broken exhaust header, and that has finished off Bobby Rahal's day as he disgustedly throws away the water bottle. Bobby Rahal's day is finished here at the Molson Indy.
Well, that is too bad. Rahal bidding to become the first repeat champion here. He won the inaugural race in 1986, also won at the Meadowlands last week in the rain, and he will not get that rain monkey off his back.
All right, that perhaps does need some explanation. John Jones has spun, gotten into the tire barrier, but he's got the car under power. He doesn't have enough room to get the car. He looks like he might have killed the engine now. And he would like to get a little help from those course marshals. They'd like to he wants to get the car away from the wall so that they can push it and get him going again. There was the last hope for Canada in this run. He throws his hands up in frustration. What I was about to suggest was that you wonder why. Well, why? Here, we're going to get a chance to look at it again. Here comes John Jones, gets the back end loose. Now there is a protective barrier of tires that fronts the concrete barrier at this point. That's what he brushed, so the car wasn't seriously damaged. He just lost the back end coming around. Now, just a quick explanation of why an exhaust header that is leaking is a problem. You need the pressure from the exhaust pipe to turn the wheel in the turbocharger. If the air can leak out somewhere else, it will. The turbocharger won't work, and the car doesn't have power. That's why Rahal is out.
There is your leader, Michael Andretti, racing for Newman Haas. He had 4 wins in 1987, Michigan, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Milwaukee, and Miami. Has not won yet in 1989. However, as Paul Page suggested, he's been driving very, very well. And, Paul, you've said it all afternoon. I would not want to be going against Andretti if he takes the lead. His lead, though, is now down to about 5.5 seconds over car 20, Emerson Fittipaldi. Now, it was 10 seconds. Maybe he's just taking it easy. I'm not sure. They now go out of that straight into turn number 3. We'll keep a watch on the computer. Still about 5.5 seconds. The lead over Fittipaldi.
Of course, all of these cars have two-way radios. His crew can, if they care to, tell him just how close Fittipaldi is. In the last 7 laps, Fittipaldi has closed the interval by 4 seconds. If he continues that pace in the 15 laps remaining, then Fittipaldi will catch Michael Andretti before the end of this race and possibly get past him. Now, what they may be doing is not telling Michael that he's that close, and he won't know until he gets on one of the long stretches and catches a view of him in the mirrors.
All right, Bobby Rahal is out of this race. Let's go down to Ken Daniels.
Bobby Rahal, obviously very disappointed. What exactly did put you out of this race?
Header broke, and it just burst through the spark plug wires, and too bad. We were looking good. You know, it was questionable whether they would have been able to go the distance without having to stop for fuel again. Too bad.
No rain this time around. They said before perhaps the Cosworth. They said before perhaps the Cosworth couldn't do it. You proved it last week, although it was rain. Did you really want to show them this week?
Well, I think we did.
So good enough for you anyway.
Yep.
Let's go back up top. Thank you, Bobby.
All right, thank you, Ken Daniels. Bobby Rahal raced his first race back in the 1970s at Moseport. He's married to a Canadian. Lives on the golf course in Dublin, Ohio. Won here in 1986. There's Emerson Fittipaldi. Emerson Fittipaldi now about 5.8 seconds behind our race leader, Michael Andretti. Andretti is the leader, followed by Fittipaldi. Danny Sullivan, Teo Fabi, and Rick Mears is running in 5th place. Danny Sullivan is 3rd. Danny Sullivan has never won here. This man, of course, Emerson Fittipaldi, won 2 years ago. Wolfgang Porsche himself is here, attending his first race from Stuttgart, West Germany. Has to be very happy with what he sees. This March Porsche of Fabi is now running 4th behind Andretti, Fittipaldi, and Sullivan. Now, Porsche had such high hopes. They had a devastating blow last year, Paul Page, when Al Holbert was killed in the car accident, but he did one very, very smart thing prior to his untimely death.
Well, Holbert was killed in a plane crash last fall. He was one of the grand men of the sport. But just the week before he died, in fact, the Tuesday before he died, he held a conversation with Derek Walker of the Penske organization. And he said, look, Derek, I want you to come over and manage this team. Derek agreed verbally. Al told a couple of people that. And then his plane crashed and he was gone. Well, to Porsche's credit, they stuck with the obligations made verbally by Al Holbert. It was a bright thing to do. They now have Derek Walker in the fold. He is a brilliant race strategist. He is a very good planner, an excellent manager, and he is going to bring this team to the front. There is no question in my mind about that. Right now, they're using only the Porsche engine. There is development on a Porsche chassis. We've actually seen one in the early going, but then they went over and made an arrangement with March to do the chassis development while they got the engine in position. And someday we're going to see Porsche at the front, and someday we're going to see Derek Walker as one of the great owners of cars in this sport.
Right now, the day belongs to car number 6. That is the Newman-Haas team. Michael Andretti, the race leader. Danny Sullivan making a move, I believe, on Emerson Fittipaldi. This has to be a big moment for Newman-Haas. Andretti leading, because earlier today, if you missed it, Michael's father and teammate Mario involved right in about this area of the course in a very spectacular accident. As he crunched into Roberto Guerrero, here's Michael, the leader. Guerrero was off to the side of the course. His father Mario was trying to pass Teo Fabi in the Porsche and was very lucky to escape with no serious injuries, but that, of course, upset Mario. He's still wondering what happened. It upset Michael, who was on the course, but now Michael's lead is shrinking again.
Well, the sign has just been given to all of the teams that you just see on the screen. 10 laps to go. It's an important mark because hereafter, the course officials will not send a tow truck out to tow a car in. It will be left in place on the circuit. They will let the leaders race to the end of this race and throw a full course yellow only if it is absolutely necessary. So the interval is now closed to 4.7 seconds. Michael, for a couple laps, had it figured out that Fittipaldi was right there and began to pick up the pace, but Fittipaldi is still closing. Also, John Jones is back running on the course, running in 16th place, but he is under power.
There's a look at John Jones very briefly, and the leader still, though, is Michael Andretti, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Danny Sullivan, Teo Fabi, and Rick Mears. Fittipaldi currently running 4 seconds now behind Michael Andretti. Let's go down to Ken Daniels.
Thank you, Brian. I'm here with Sandy Andretti, who's leaning over, taking time out from the race for a second to talk to us. Your feelings right now, Sandy?
I'm quite nervous because we haven't seen the checker flag in a while. We really need to see the checker flag. And ammo might be gaining on us, so we just have to wait and see what happens when the checker flag comes down.
Michael's been racing well. Is his confidence still up?
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, so we'll just see what happens after this race.
Okay, Sandy, thank you. Back upstairs to you.
Well, she mentioned that Emerson Fittipaldi may be moving in. Out of the race goes John Jones, so the last Canadian is out. Scott Goodyear was running in the top 10, ran out of fuel. Ludwig Heimrath had mechanical problems. Now Jones is gone. All Canadians out. You mentioned Fittipaldi. He is car 20. He is now, well, he was down to about 4.1 seconds. He's now nearly up to 5 seconds. There is your leader, Andretti. Mears is not a factor. And there is Emerson Fittipaldi, who is running second.
Seems like on that stretch, the interval closed quite a bit. It's being displayed up at the start-finish line. It's just a tick under 5 seconds. But Fittipaldi is very definitely on the fly, trying to catch Michael Andretti. Sandy Andretti is unlike many of the drivers' wives. Many of the drivers' wives have met the drivers after their racing career began and are caught up in the sport. Sandy Andretti is Michael's childhood sweetheart. She knew him long before he ever started racing cars. They went to grade school together and high school together. She's not a great fan of racing. She comes to the track to be with her husband, but she doesn't really like to see him going 170 miles an hour.
Of course, what that does, as our leader now going up to well over 170 miles an hour on the straightaway, what that does probably is keep things into perspective for Michael.
It certainly keeps him in balance, though he is a man who understands exactly who he is. The Andrettis are very good at self-analysis. I mentioned earlier how good Mario is at understanding his position on the racetrack at any time. That applies to their lives. They're very organized thinkers. He knows who he is. He's not taken with who he is. He's been in a great racing family all of his life. So there's not a star factor that's affecting Michael. He's a very even-tempered, even-going fella. In fact, last week at the Meadowlands, one of the drivers, in fact, Mario, his father, had some fancy luxury car there. Michael drove up to the track in a pickup truck.
Well, Michael and Mario, I believe, both driving Hondas today. We see them parked out back with their names on them. Michael even up at a Kmart store in my area signing autographs earlier this week. Michael, of course, sponsored. Newman Haas is sponsored by Kmart. Now down into the straightaway. Michael Andretti, the lead is now under 4 seconds. There is our leader, Michael Andretti. The lead is less than 4 seconds over Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi there, he's just come into your screen.
Just under 5 laps to go now, and Fittipaldi definitely has the scent. He has Michael visually in front of him, and that gives him a little greater impetus to try and catch that car. Fittipaldi now can measure what is happening. Before, he can't see the leader in front of him, and so he's just driving quickly. Now he has a target. He has something in his sights ahead, and that's really going to help him catch.
There's Danny Sullivan. He's third, but he is not a factor. Here's the story. There's Andretti. Slower car. Andretti with a slower car between himself and Emerson Fittipaldi. The lead is less than 4 seconds to go.
We are going to have a great race here because Fittipaldi is going to drive now in these last few laps. We're now with 98 laps complete for all he is worth to try and catch Michael. Here's the worst thing that can happen to Michael, to encounter slower traffic ahead that may not recognize that Michael is there. If they slow him up even a couple of tenths, that goes to Fittipaldi's advantage. Fittipaldi is very good at working his way through traffic.
All right, out of the straight, there is Michael Andretti. Ignore the other car, car 10 Daly. Ignore 59 ceiling. There is Fittipaldi.
All right, let's see how good Fittipaldi handles the traffic that's in front of him as they come through what is ordinarily a section of the course that you wouldn't attempt to pass. Fittipaldi, if he's going to be bright, would simply pull up behind those cars and wait until there's a clear section. But he's a little more desperate than that, Val. Let's see what the tactic of the two-time world champion is.
We are heading for a big, big finish. There's Danny Sullivan. He is third, but he is not a factor. The story right now is Michael Andretti as he is pursued by Emerson Fittipaldi. Michael Andretti, car number 6, trying to win for the first time in 1989. Emerson Fittipaldi has won 4 of the last 6 races.
And the interval closed.
Yes,
interval closed now to
2.5 seconds.
3 laps to go, 2.5 seconds of separation. There's Fittipaldi. He got through the slower cars on that back section. That by itself is a tremendous feat of driving. And now he is pursuing Michael Andretti, and he is closing on him. Michael has the slower car, the Porsche of Teo Fabi just ahead.
Now, Teo Fabi is running 4th. They're about to lap Fabi. That means only 3 cars, Andretti, Fittipaldi, and Sullivan, are on the same lap. There is Emerson Fittipaldi. He was second 1 week ago in New Jersey. Will he be able to reel in Michael Andretti? Teo Fabi is running 4th. Andretti not able to get past Fabi. Now makes his move on Fabi. There's Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi now coming around behind Fabi. Fittipaldi goes by Fabi.
What a great move by Teo Fabi. Fabi moved out of the way of both of those cars and really took a chance when he moved out of the way when Fittipaldi came through. He really helped the leaders out, and he helped make a great race to the finish.
Into turn number 1, Emerson Fittipaldi is all over Michael Andretti. Watch this PC-18 Chevrolet of Emerson Fittipaldi on the straightaway make its move on number 6. Michael Andretti, the race leader, now by a second over Emerson Fittipaldi. Emerson Fittipaldi, no! Yes,
they
but into the wall. And
but Fittipaldi's still running. He's going to try to get that car back into the run.
Oh, my, Emerson Fittipaldi, who bumped with Al Unser Jr., but continued on to win the Indy 500, tries to make a move on Michael Andretti. At that slow right hairpin turn number 3, he bumped Andretti. Now has a big lead and should be able to coast home. Michael Andretti now with a wide lead over Emerson Fittipaldi. There's our leader, the Newman Haas, car number 6 of Michael Andretti. Andretti leading every race with the exception of Portland.
Well, the question is going to be damage as Michael Andretti takes the white flag with one more lap to go. Fittipaldi is running visibly slower. That was a pretty good impact. There's nothing obviously wrong with Michael's car. The question will be in this final lap, and surely it's going through Michael's mind because he can't see all of the car from the cockpit. Boy, is there anything on this thing that is damaged that's going to keep me from finishing this one?
This has been a day to remember here in Toronto. Let's take a look at it again. Fittipaldi tries to go to the right. Michael moves over, puts him into the wall.
Well, Andretti, I think, started the turn in just a little bit early. He certainly was aware that Fittipaldi was there, and I think he was just trying to get the door shut on him, but Fittipaldi was almost totally alongside. The rule in racing, though unwritten, is the race course belongs to the leader.
Well, here is our leader. He is just seconds away from winning for the first time in Toronto, and the first time in 1989, Michael Andretti in the number 6 Newman Haas. And this big crowd of over 60,000 comes alive on the Toronto waterfront as it is official. Michael Andretti is the winner of the 1989 Molson Indy, surviving that shunt with Emerson Fittipaldi down on turn number 3. A very happy Andretti family. There's Emerson Fittipaldi. He will finish second. Danny Sullivan will be third. Teo Fabi in the Porsche will finish fourth. Rick Mears should be fifth, followed by Scott Pruitt, Raul Bussell, Fabrizio Barbazza, Evan Cogan, and Dominic Dobson rounding out the top 10. The 3 Canadians not finishing here today. Michael Andretti winning for the first time this year. Won 4 races back in 1987 at Michigan, Pennsylvania, Milwaukee, and Miami.
Well, I think you're going to hear a lot of conversation about that next to last lap. They'll look at those tapes 200 or 300 times and trying to decide whether there is any fault in it. But, you know, once again, you're talking the end of a race. You're talking the penultimate lap. Now, at that point, both drivers go just as hard as they can. Fittipaldi tried to place his car down to the inside of Michael. Michael had the opportunity to turn in for the corner. In reality, the only 2 who know the truth of that particular situation are the 2 involved, because our lenses will foreshorten that distance. And you never can really judge from the photograph. You're going to have to ask the drivers.
Can you remember, and you have covered this circuit probably more than anyone here in attendance today. We take a look at the shot again. Let's see if we can find out if indeed Michael was pulling off to the left of the screen a little early.
Well, you can see the lines on the course start to bend over. Michael turned over quite a bit. From what we see, that doesn't look like the normal entry line. It looked like he didn't expect him to come up quite that fast and was just trying to widen the car out.
Ken Daniels.
Michael, certainly a very tense finish. Did Emo have enough room in your mind to even attempt that move?
I was a little surprised that he would do that because he wasn't under me. And I was braking a little earlier than him. And I guess I didn't give him enough room. I'm sorry.
It must have been a huge monkey off your back, I would think.
I miss you.
Must have been a huge monkey off your back, a couple of second-place finishes to finally win here.
I'll tell you, I can't believe it. It's going to take a long time for this one to sink in.
Was your confidence shattered at all? Were you beginning to doubt yourself at all?
Well, there in the middle of the race, I felt bad. Kmart Hamlin crew did a great job getting the tires on. and I thought they weighed me out on the first stop, and they didn't. And we didn't get all the fuel in, so that's how we missed so much time.
What about your father, Mario, out early in this race? You obviously heard as soon as it happened, I would think. Your thoughts then?
Yeah, I felt really bad to see that. My main concern, though, was to, make sure he was all right, and he was, so that made my day.
The two of you have had so much bad luck. It's finally over, do you think?
I hope we finally broke it. I really do.
Your wife saying finally, I guess you're both pretty relieved.
I feel happy.
Congratulations, Michael.
Emerson, quite a charge there in the closing laps. You tried the move to the inside. What happened with you and Michael?
I don't know. I was already ahead of Michael. You can see on the tape. And he hit on my side and squeezed him against the wall. Unfortunately, he made a move too late, and I was already committed. I was already there. Actually, you can see on tape. I think that would be the best thing to do.
So you firmly believe you had the corner, you had made the pass into the lead, and he cut you off a bit going into the turn?
Well, no, very disappointed what happened. That's the only thing I can say. That, I'm very disappointed. I was there already. I don't know what happened with Michael.
Paul Page, a rather interesting race. Had a little of everything, a lot of yellow flags after that Mario Andretti crack-up.
Yeah, I think what's going to come from this race is some conversation about what they're going to permit with regard to that close driving, considering the Michael Andretti incident with Emerson Fittipaldi at the end. So far this year, it's been very lucky. The leaders have gotten together, they've been in contact, and they've walked away from it. Sooner or later, though, you're going to have the facings of those tires hit one another, and then one of the cars is going to become airborne. I hope that they deal with this situation and without pulling some of the excitement away from the sport, but still deal with it before it turns into a tragedy.
Well, it was close at the end as Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti came together in turn number 3, but Michael Andretti holding on to win for the first time this year, and you predicted it. You said if he gets up in front, he's going to be very dangerous.
Well, I thought Michael was very desperate to win, and he obviously proved that here today. When some of the other members of the regular media were talking about this yesterday, I said, well, I really think that it's going to be Michael Andretti. And of course, what they said was, Page, you've been saying that for 5 races. Well, if you wait long enough, you become a winner.
I understand you won the media pool.
Well, I'm going to go over and talk to some of my brothers.
All right. It was Michael Andretti today, as picked by Paul Page. Emerson Fittipaldi was second, followed by Sullivan, Fabi, and Mears. The Porsche running fourth today. Mears for Roger Penske. 2 Penske cars in the top 5.